Retribution's dawn. The UES Concordia hung in the void like a predator waiting to strike, its obsidian hull absorbing the distant starlight rather than reflecting it. At 20 kilometers long, the vessel dwarfed anything humanity had built before, a testament to desperation and ingenuity born from the ashes of devastation. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays surrounding her command station. The stars outside were unfamiliar. They had traveled far beyond established human territory. But their target was clear: the Zenthari hegemony's military outpost on Vega Prime. Status report, Reyes demanded, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had lost too much. Lieutenant Commander Jackson moved to her side. All systems nominal, Commander. Quantum drives are stable after the jump. Weapon systems are charged and ready. The crew is. He hesitated, prepared. Reyes knew what that hesitation meant. The crew of the Concordia were not just soldiers. They were survivors. Every person aboard had lost someone in the Zenthari's systematic purge of human outer colonies. They called it species management. Humanity called it genocide. Open a ship-wide channel, Reyes ordered. The comm officer nodded, and Reyes took a deep breath. This is Commander Reyes. In 1 hour, we will engage the enemy that destroyed New Terra, Proxima Colony, and 13 other human settlements. The Concordia was built for one purpose: to show the Zenthari hegemony that humanity will not be extinguished. Today, we remind them that every action has consequences. She paused, remembering the footage from New Terra, her home. The crystalline Zenthari ships descending like locusts, their energy weapons cutting through defenses like paper. The colony's distress signal had lasted for 6 hours before going silent. 12 million lives, extinguished. Some call what we're about to do vengeance, she continued. I call it justice. Prepare for battle stations. Rise out. 5 years ago, humanity had been a minor power in the galactic community, peaceful explorers expanding slowly from Earth. Then the Zenthari came with their doctrine of evolutionary superiority. Their High Council had determined that humans were a destabilizing element in the galaxy, too adaptable, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to spread. The subsequent attacks were methodical, precise. Earth's defense fleets were outmatched by Zenthari technology. But humans have always excelled at one thing above all others: adapting to survive. The Concordia was the result, a vessel unlike any other in the galaxy. Not built with alien technology, but with human innovation pushed to its limits. While the Zenthari destroyed colonies, the best minds on Earth worked in secret, developing weapons that could match their enemy. Approaching Vega Prime, Commander, the navigation officer announced. Long-range sensors detect 23 Zenthari vessels in orbit. Their planetary shield is active. As expected, Reyes nodded. Begin approach sequence. Activate stealth systems. The massive ship seemed to fade from visual detection as advanced metamaterials bent light around its hull. The Concordia's revolutionary propulsion system left no energy wake to track. To the Zenthari, they were a ghost. Weapons status, Reyes asked. Graviton lance is primed, Commander. Kinetic accelerators loaded and locked. Drone swarms ready for deployment. Reyes studied the tactical display. Vega Prime housed one of the hegemony's primary shipyards, producing the very vessels that had annihilated human colonies. It was heavily defended, but the Zenthari had never faced a ship like the Concordia before. Take us in. Optimum firing range in 3 minutes. The bridge fell silent, the tension palpable. Many of the officers had never seen actual combat. Simulations and training could only prepare them so much for what was about to happen. Commander, Communications Officer Chen's voice broke the silence. We're intercepting Zenthari transmissions. They have no idea we're here. A grim smile touched Reyes' lips. Good. Let's keep it that way. The Concordia slipped past the outer defense perimeter undetected, a technological marvel of human ingenuity. 5,000 crew members worked in perfect harmony, guiding the massive vessel into position. "In range, Commander," Weapons Officer Cato reported. Rice nodded. "Target their primary defense node and the command center. Deploy drone swarms to handle their fighter screen." Targets locked. Rice took a deep breath. This moment would mark humanity's first significant counterattack in a war they had been losing. Fire. The Concordia's main weapon, the graviton lance, harnessed the fundamental forces of the universe itself. A concentrated beam of altered gravity tore through space, invisible until it contacted matter. Then devastation followed. The effect on the Zenthari defense node was immediate and catastrophic. The structure didn't explode so much as implode, collapsing in on itself as fundamental forces warped and twisted. The planetary shield flickered and died. "Shields down. Direct hit on command center," Cato reported, unable to keep the shock from his voice. Before the Zenthari could comprehend what was happening, thousands of autonomous combat drones launched from the Concordia, streaking toward the shipyards and military installations. Each drone, barely larger than a human hand, carried weaponry that could penetrate Zenthari hull material with ease, another innovation born from studying recovered debris. "Zenthari vessels are scrambling," Tactical Officer Dias reported. "They're trying to locate us." "They won't," Rice said confidently. "Target their capital ships." One by one, the graviton lance fired again, and a Zenthari dreadnought crumpled like aluminum foil. The kinetic accelerators launched projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, turning 3 more enemy vessels into expanding clouds of debris. "They're transmitting distress signals," Chen reported. "Should we jam them?" Rice shook her head. "No. Let them call for help. Let them know what's coming." The battle, if it could be called that, was less a fight and more an execution. The Zenthari, for all their technological superiority, had never imagined humans could develop weapons like these so quickly. Their arrogance had blinded them. Within 20 minutes, the orbital shipyards were in ruins. 17 Zenthari vessels had been destroyed. The remaining 6 had retreated, jumping to faster-than-light travel with damage to their hulls. "Casualties?" Rice asked. "None, Commander," Jackson reported, disbelief in his voice. "Minor damage to sections 12 and 47 from debris impact. No breaches." "And the planet?" "Zenthari military installations have been neutralized by the drone swarms. Civilian areas remain untouched as ordered." Rice nodded. Unlike the Zenthari, they weren't here for genocide. This was a precision strike, showing the enemy that humanity could hit them where it hurt. "Recover the drones. Prepare for jump to safe coordinates." As the Concordia began retrieving its autonomous weapons, Rice looked at the devastation they had wrought. This was just the beginning. The hegemony had outposts and military installations throughout 3 sectors, and the Concordia would visit them all. "Message from Earth Command, Commander," Chen announced. "They're receiving the Zenthari distress signals. Half their fleet is being redirected to Vega Prime." "Good," Rice said. "Let them chase shadows while we move to our next target." She turned to her executive officer. "What's the status on our next objective?" "Turix IV is ready for our arrival, Commander. It houses their primary antimatter production facility." "Set course. We strike in 12 hours." As the Concordia disappeared into FTL, reports of the devastating attack spread throughout Zenthari space. For the first time, the hegemony faced an enemy that could hurt them. An enemy they had underestimated. An enemy that would not stop until justice was served. The war had truly begun. The price of victory. The observation deck of the Concordia provided a panoramic view of the Zenthari mining colony Action III as it burned. Massive antimatter production facilities, once the pride of the hegemony's industrial might, now collapsed in spectacular chain reactions of light and devastation. It was the 5th such installation the Earth warship had destroyed in 2 weeks. Commander Elena Rice watched the destruction with hollow eyes. The initial rush of righteous vengeance had faded, leaving behind a cold, calculating determination. Each strike weakened the Zenthari war machine. Each facility destroyed meant fewer weapons pointed at human worlds. "Commander," Lieutenant Commander Jackson approached, datapad in hand. "The Zenthari fleet movements have become erratic. They're spreading thin, trying to protect their remaining assets." "As expected," Rais nodded. "And diplomatic channels." Jackson's expression tightened. "The Elixiri Conclave has officially condemned our actions. They're calling us rogue aggressors and threatening sanctions against Earth if we don't cease operations." "The same Elixiri who stood by while the Zenthari glassed our colonies?" Rais asked bitterly. "The very same. There's more. 3 other neutral species are aligning with the Elixiri position. They're calling for an emergency session of the Galactic Assembly." Rais turned away from the viewport. "Politics," she spat the word like a curse. "While they debated legal definitions of genocide, millions of humans died." She composed herself. "What's Earth's response?" "Defiance, ma'am. The United Earth government has withdrawn from the Assembly, citing its failure to protect member species." Jackson hesitated. "But there's internal pressure too. Some colonies are questioning our methods." This didn't surprise Rais. Even among her crew, doubts had begun to surface. Not about the mission, but about its execution. "Commander," Medical Officer Dr. Seto's voice came through the comm. "I've completed the psychological evaluations you requested. 23 crew members are showing significant trauma responses. I recommend rotating them off frontline duties." "Understood, Doctor. Make the necessary arrangements." Rais closed the channel and faced her XO. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, Jackson. Carrying the weight of humanity's survival rarely is." Before he could respond, the ship's alert system activated. "Commander to the bridge. Priority 1. Rais and Jackson moved with practiced efficiency, reaching the bridge in moments. The tactical display showed a massive fleet formation approaching their position. "Status report," Rais demanded. Tactical Officer Dias responded immediately. "Zenthari Response Fleet, Commander. 47 vessels, including 3 Sovereign-class dreadnoughts. They're converging on our position from multiple vectors." "They've adapted," Rais observed. "They're trying to box us in." "Not just that," Communications Officer Chen added. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. They're calling us out directly." "Let me hear it." The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a deep, modulated voice filled the room. The Zenthari language had been translated by the ship's AI, but the cold, clicking undertones remained. "Humans of the vessel Concordia. I am High Commander Vextori of the Zenthari hegemony. Your attacks against our people will end today. You have demonstrated yourselves to be the threat our council identified: violent, unpredictable, and unworthy of galactic citizenship. Surrender now, and we will ensure a humane extinction for your remaining colonies." The message repeated, and Rais silenced it with a gesture. "They're desperate," she noted. "They've committed nearly a third of their remaining fleet to this operation." "Can we evade?" Jackson asked. "No." Rais studied the tactical display. "They've positioned jump inhibitors at the likely escape vectors. They've learned from our previous engagements." She turned to her crew. "This is what we prepared for." Battle stations. Throughout the massive vessel, crew members rushed to their posts. The Concordia had been designed not just to strike, but to survive. Now that design would be tested. "Gravitum Lance status?" Rais asked. "Charged and ready, Commander," Kaido reported. "But against this many targets, we'll need more." Rais finished his thought. "Deploy all combat drones. Activate the Nemesis Protocol." A hush fell over the bridge. The Nemesis Protocol was the ship's last resort. A network of experimental weapons that drained so much power that the Concordia would be vulnerable during their activation. "Commander," Jackson said quietly, "Nemesis hasn't been field-tested. The simulation showed potential for catastrophic collateral damage." Rais met his gaze steadily. "We're out of options, XO." The Zenthari have adapted faster than we anticipated. If the Concordia falls, Earth follows. After a moment's hesitation, Jackson nodded, initiating Nemesis protocol. Throughout the massive ship, previously dormant systems hummed to life. The lights dimmed as power was redirected to the experimental weapons array. Zenthari fleet approaching weapons range, Dias reported. They're launching fighter squadrons, thousands of them. Deploy defensive screen, Rise ordered. Prepare to engage their capital ships the moment UEDS is online. The space between the fleets filled with streaking energy weapons and swarms of fighters. The Concordia's advanced point defense systems intercepted incoming fire with remarkable efficiency, but the sheer volume was overwhelming. Hull breach in sections 29 through 34, an officer reported. Emergency protocols engage. Nemesis at 60%. Jackson called out. 3 minutes to full activation. A massive impact rocked the ship. Direct hit from Sovereign-class weaponry, Dias reported. Shields at 40% and falling. Reyes gripped her command station. Return fire with conventional weapons. Target their lead vessels. The Concordia's secondary weapons array unleashed a barrage of energy and kinetic projectiles. 2 Zenthari cruisers shattered under the assault, but the dreadnoughts pressed forward, their massive shields absorbing punishment. They're surrounding us, Dias warned. Formation suggests they're preparing for a coordinated strike from multiple vectors. Another impact, harder this time. Consoles exploded across the bridge, and emergency systems activated, filling the air with suppression foam. Shields at 20%, someone shouted through the chaos. Multiple hull breaches reported. Nemesis at 90%. Jackson called out, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Almost there. Reyes watched as the Zenthari fleet closed in for the kill. After everything, had they miscalculated? Had humanity's last, best hope come up short? Nemesis online, Jackson reported, his voice filled with grim determination. Target all Zenthari vessels, Reyes ordered. Fire. The Nemesis system was humanity's darkest innovation, a weapon that didn't destroy matter, but altered the quantum state of its targets. As the weapon activated, space itself seemed to shudder around the Concordia. The effect on the Zenthari fleet was immediate and horrifying. Their ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist in their current form, transformed into clouds of subatomic particles that rapidly dispersed into the vacuum of space. 47 vessels, thousands of Zenthari warriors, gone in moments. Silence fell over the bridge as the crew witnessed the awesome, terrible power they had unleashed. Status report, Reyes finally said, her voice unnaturally steady. All enemy vessels, neutralized. Dias reported, shock evident in his voice. Nemesis systems now offline. Power reserves at critical levels. Casualties, Reyes asked. Dr. Sato's voice came through the comm. 78 confirmed dead, Commander. Over 200 injured. We're stabilizing the worst cases now. The first significant losses the Concordia had suffered. Reyes closed her eyes briefly, honoring their sacrifice. Commander, Chen's voice was hesitant. We're receiving a transmission from the Zenthari High Council. Reyes straightened. Put it through. The main view screen flickered to life, showing not the militaristic high commander they heard before, but an elder Zenthari, its crystalline exoskeleton dulled with age. When it spoke, the translation carried a tone of resignation. I am High Counselor Zexteril of the Zenthari hegemony. Your demonstration of power has been noted. We request immediate cessation of hostilities and offer terms for negotiation. Reyes studied the alien carefully. The last time Zenthari approached humans with words, it was followed by genocide. Why should we believe you now? The High Counselor's compound eyes seemed to dim. Because you have proven what our evolutionary council feared, that humans possessed the capacity to destroy us utterly. The decision to preemptively strike your colonies was based on projections that humanity would eventually develop exactly this level of technology. We sought to eliminate the threat before it emerged. We miscalculated. A cold feeling settled in Raya's stomach. You're saying you attacked us because you predicted we would become a threat. Yes, and in doing so, we accelerated what we sought to prevent. The alien gestured with its upper limbs, a sign of submission in Zenthari culture. We propose an immediate cessation of all military action against human worlds. In exchange, we ask only that you do not deploy your quantum dissolution weapon against our homeworld. The bridge was deathly quiet as the implications sank in. The Zenthari had feared humanity so much they had tried to exterminate them, only to create the very scenario they dreaded. I'll relay your proposal to Earth, Rice said carefully. But know this. Any further aggression against human worlds will be met with the full force of our capabilities. The Concordia is not our only vessel. This was a bluff. The Concordia was unique, a prototype that had taken everything Earth had to build. But the Zenthari didn't need to know that. The High Counselor lowered its head. Understood. We await your response. The transmission ended. Rice turned to her crew, who looked back at her with mixed expressions of triumph, horror, and uncertainty. Set course for Earth, she ordered quietly, and prepare a full report on Nemesis's deployment. The United Earth government will need to decide our next steps carefully. As the Concordia limped away from the battlefield, Rice returned to the observation deck, staring out at the stars. They had won, or at least they hadn't lost, but the victory felt hollow. The Zenthari had attacked out of fear of what humans might become, and in defending themselves, humanity had become exactly that, a species capable of wiping out entire civilizations. The irony wasn't lost on her. Neither was the responsibility. The universe had just witnessed humanity's potential for both creation and destruction. How they proceeded from here would define their species for generations to come. The war might be ending, but humanity's greatest challenge was just beginning.